I'd like to call this meeting to order, the last meeting actually of our school year. The board met in executive session at 6 o'clock to talk about collective negotiations. And this is an open public session. If you'd please join me in repeating the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is at the back of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have so few in attendance tonight, we don't have to worry too much about attendance on the announcements, on the alternate way to leave the room. Leave the way you came in if we have to. How about that? And could I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Janet?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the agenda with the amendment that we table the action item for counseling, advisory council bylaws, and membership as an action item.
Thank you. Can we have a second? Bob? Discussion? Any questions? All those in favor? Motion passed. Move on to, this is, I should give our general opening announcement. The study session meetings are designed for the purpose of having administrative updates to the Board of Education. There are no public comments at the study session meetings. Residents may attend the next scheduled business meeting. That'll be on July 7th, 2015. That's our organizational meeting. And/or contact the board via enet@boe@shenet.org with any comments or questions. All questions come into the superintendent's office, are shared with the board. Policy questions, concerns are typically answered by the board president, and operational questions, concerns typically answered by the superintendent. So we'll move right into superintendent's communication, and we have tonight is a special meeting for us. We wanted to start right on time. We wanted to prove to Steve Gray, Janet's husband, that we start on time, and she really is here all these years, 12 years, Steve, she's been here doing this. But we want to recognize our fellow board member, Janet Gray, who is leaving the board after 12 years of service, dedicated service, just amazing service, and came on the board. I remember when Janet came on the board. I wasn't on the board at the time, but I remember reading the literature and following when you were elected, and you know, a person who was noted for getting things done at the school level and just being so connected, and it's only increased. So Janet, the board has a resolution, and then we'll talk about you some, okay? We'll allow you the end comments at the end, okay? So you can, whatever we say is wrong, you can correct us, okay? But we all would like to, let's all stand. We'll present this to Janet.
This is special.
And I'll read this. So this is a resolution of the board. It's already been signed by everybody on the board. Be it resolved that Shenendehowa Board of Education offers appreciation and commendation for the time and effort given to the Shenendehowa School District by board member Janet Gray, an individual who has served on the Board of Education for 4 terms, an individual who has held the office of president for 3 years, an individual who held the office of vice president for 2 years, an individual who has been a frequent and articulate representative for the Shenendehowa District with local government and various school and community committees, an individual who has exhibited a strong commitment to the pursuit of excellence for our students, we should have underlined that, and staff, an individual who has been a strong advocate for innovative approaches to utilizing district and community resources, an individual to whom the graduates of Shenendehowa and their families will be forever indebted. Be it resolved that the Board of Education expresses gratitude to Mrs. Gray's family for the sacrifices they have made, sharing their wife and mother in her dedication and efforts with the district. Be it further resolved that this resolution be the only item to appear on a page of the Shenendehowa Central School District Board of Education minutes for the meeting of June 23rd, 2015, and that a plaque be presented to Mrs. Gray as a token of our esteem. And this is the plaque, and congratulations. Well, don't leave. We need that over there. No, I'm not taking credit for this. Mrs. Blaybor, you know, is the most thoughtful person on the board, and she is the most creative, and she's put together something to help you remember your time on the board and look forward to the time after the board.
There you go. Thank
That's a small thing of Kleenex to start
With a
with.
bow on it. I always share tissue
She
with
always
Mrs.
gives me
Gray.
the tissues.
So this is just a small token of our appreciation and a representation of your incredible service to the Shenendehowa School District and your passion for the beach.
Honey, we're going to the beach. I don't think I can read it. Well,
I bet Mary.
hold it. It says, presented to Janet Gray in recognition of her dedicated service on the Shenendehowa Board of Education, 2003 to 2015. It made a difference for everyone, and the reason for that is because the story is the starfish story. Many people are familiar with that, about the man who's walking along the beach and sees somebody off in the distance, and he walks up to the man, and he's tossing individual starfish back into the ocean, and when he's questioned about why he's doing it, you know, I have to save them. And the other guy says, well, you can't possibly save them all. And he tosses another one in and said, I saved that one. And that's who you are to us. Every single student at Shen has benefited from your service and your dedication, and you have been important to every single one.
Oh, thanks.
So thank you for everything.
Thank you very much.
Now go to the beach.
And use a Kleenex.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
There we go.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thank you. Gary.
Bless you.
You have to be last. Thank you. Christina, go for it. Thank you, everybody. Oh, my God.
I should have announced that Christina Rajad is here, and while Janet was standing, she was sizing up the chair.
It's a little wobbly.
I would open it up if anyone would like to comment, and certainly we want to hear from Janet. We're going to give you, I called her today, said we're going to give you a chance to give us a little, the Janet Gray State of the State of Education here at Shenendehowa. Gary, you served the longest here with Janet,
Yes.
and one of our former compatriots is in the audience. He's going to present to us, Jim Grandy, who was with you a long time ago on this.
Give me an opportunity to say something, or?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
I think it goes without saying, but it has actually already been said, that you cared greatly about the students in every issue that came before you, and you dug to get the issues as well. It wasn't like it just the things that came easy. You found out, you knew what was going on. And I think above anything else, as far as the board operation is concerned, the fact that you were the first to break the mold in terms of serving 3 years, breaking the precedent of only serving 2 successive years. And you saw us through 3 of the worst, most challenging years that this district has seen in a long time, perhaps ever. And we landed on our feet, and I think a lot of that has to do with the leadership and the vision and your cooperative spirit and everything else that you brought to the job. I thank you so much.
Anyone else like to speak? Jim?
I have a memory unconnected to the school board that I'd like to share. And Steve may remember this. And this goes back about 20 years. My first encounter with Janet Gray was when she, week after week, I was the town attorney at the time, and week after week, Janet and Eileen LaCourse came to the podium and championed the cause of the town having pools. And as a result, over, it must have been close to a year of petitioning, they saw it through, and the town now has, I think, 4 pools altogether, including the one up north. But the pools in Clifton Knolls were as a result of Janet's advocacy. So I never forgot that, and I see that same intensity here on the board. It hasn't lessened after 20 years, so thanks for the memories.
No, I forgot about that, too.
She forgot about that. How about anyone else? Mary?
I don't know what it's going to be like not to have you on my right. But I think that there's never been an issue that has been a concern for a student or a parent that you haven't made an effort to address. Put people in touch with whoever it is that they needed to talk to or could fix a problem, whether it was at the table or in the grocery store. You've never been away from the job, such as it is, and I'm proud to follow along behind you. And it would be a lot harder if I didn't live nearby and know that I would still be your friend. But I'm very grateful for your mentorship as well as for your leadership and your service.
Thank you.
And I just want to add to that, I have, over the time, known Janet, relied so much on her for her counsel, and wanted to hear her voice and hear where she was on positions. You have a clear lens that is focused on students and parents and the families that we serve, and that is the reason we're here. And sometimes we can get distracted by outside forces or personalities or whatever, but you have just stayed so focused on that it's, I think of it's like sitting in the chair at the ophthalmologist, when they click to when it's the clearest, and you know where that is, and you have been a clear voice on this, so thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
So we'll give you a chance.
Actually, I wanted to go quietly into the night because I've never spent the last 12 years doing that. And I think I've spoken quite a bit over the last 12 years. I have absolutely no regrets. I loved this job from day one. I loved the people that I worked with. Some I liked more than others. There were days where we were a fine-tuned machine. I think we're like that right now. There were days that, because we weren't a fine-tuned machine, we spent a lot of time trying to overcome that. This is much better. There's been a lot of things that's gone on in the last 12 years, and I don't need to enumerate them. The campus absolutely looked different 12 years ago. The leadership team was completely different 12 years ago. What came to mind today was, I think about Greg Pace, who always sits in the audience, and I think Greg was a teacher at Scano when I ran for the board. And here he's been a well-placed principal for quite some time at Sasago. So it's been a long time, but I think that we've done some great things. The campus looks different. Our academics look different. Our board is cohesive and collaborative. I think we have a phenomenal relationship with our bargaining units, because I really believe that we're all in this together. There's a lot less of them versus us than when I first started on the board, and I think that we've worked really hard to make sure that that happens, and I think that the students benefit when we work collaboratively. I couldn't possibly have done this without my husband and my kids. Steve has been he's been a great supporter. There have been days where he's like, oh, okay, you're out again, but my kids and Steve have been phenomenal throughout the 12 years, and they never once told me I wasn't doing the right thing. So, thank you. And I have to say, and I'll go to my deathbed saying it, the thing I'm the most proud of is hiring Oliver. And in turn, Oliver hiring the people that he works with. Because this is an incredible team. And I know that we are so lucky, and I remember saying, we may only have him for 3 years.
That was 10 years ago.
Fortunately, like me, he can't go away either. But it was, I think, the most important thing I did as a board member. And I couldn't be prouder. And I couldn't be prouder to have said my kids graduated from Shen, and that I too am graduating from Shen. So thanks, everybody.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Janet.
Let's move on.
I had a friend who misused a lot of words, but you always know what he meant, and he just would have referred to that as a standard ovation. We knew what he meant. And I should have said, as we were talking about Janet and her service, one of the things, as you know on this board, how time-consuming and how overwhelming this can be, and yet Janet has done so many things outside of the school as well, and one of them, we're going to invite Jim Grandy up to talk about the Shenendehowa Foundation. Janet's been the board liaison to the foundation, but somehow she's redefined the term liaison and just been a wonderful advocate there. And the most recent fundraiser, which Jim will talk about, and the work that Janet did, helping put that together. And she had a lot of work she did by herself and scrambled and just pulled it off, and it was a beautiful thing. So we remember those things too, Janet. And you may be retiring here or graduating here, but there's no graduation from the Education Foundation, right? Right, Jim? And Jim?
And never alone, trust me. It's never been alone.
So former board president, Jim Grandy, and president of the, or chairman of the Shenendehowa Education Foundation. For excellence. Where do we at that?
It's funny when you asked for approval, for the minutes, my hand just about went up. I had I do want to say my piece with Janet and stuff. Over 21 years ago, Bill Casey and Karen Green came over to my house and told me about being on the board and said, "Oh, this is great. A couple meetings a month. It's not really controversial and stuff or political or anything and stuff. This is a piece of cake. You really should run." Yeah. And then Steve and Janet, 12 years ago, I was over their house for some summer thing, and they asked, "What is it like being on the board?" And I was a little bit more honest, and I said, "It is what you make it, but don't go overboard." I went overboard, having a full-time job at GE and raising a family and stuff. I went overboard, and I said, "Don't do that." And she didn't listen to me. But the bottom line is I can say the school district is a better place, and that's the main thing. So. What I wanted to talk about. Huh? Okay. Well, I want to get out of the way. So. Okay. Bill mentioned about the gala that we had recently and was quite successful, and no small part with Jenna's efforts. She made all those baskets for the raffle and stuff like that. But here are some of our major sponsors. But we have one fundraiser for the year. We really try to gather funds, get foundation funding, so we can support the students. That's the be-all, end-all that we're here for. So one of our, and this is our main effort, is the gala. And we have over 245 attendees. The raffle, we have various raffles. We have 3 types of raffles this time, and we made probably around $13K just on those. But the net after the tickets and donations and everything else, especially from the major sponsors there, we netted $50,000, which I think is really great. Here's some of the things. our process that we use to fund various activities is fundamentally based on grants. So basically, teachers and other people within the school district apply for grants and then review them, and then we'll support them or not. And also, we go hand in hand with the district. So like technology grants, we funnel through the technology department to make sure it's consistent with the overall overarching direction for the district. But here are some of the grants, and one of the things I think we're most proud of is the diversity of the grants and the activities that are going on. Romeo and Juliet, my God. New York City class trip for the alternative ed class, which was great and awesome. Robotics team, that's one of those items where we have consistent year in and year out support, so they don't have to apply for a grant every year. We just said, this is an important endeavor by our students. Let's fund them every year. Getting whiteboards for the elementary schools. The other thing I'm proud of too is we also leverage with other entities within the school system to cost share. So this is also an effort where the PTAs for the schools also chipped in. And basically when you can put together resources, you can get more bang for the buck. So we were able to do that. The rock walls in the elementary phys ed we joked about. You should get a picture of the board climbing the walls since we do that a lot anyways. But
Thank God I'm
at
going.
some time, yeah, we'll try that. Video, High School United Nations Club. So if you look at that list, and I've got other ones from previous years, it's a diverse list, and we're really proud of that, and it affects a lot of students. Some of the major initiatives this year, we're trying to think bigger and things like that, but one of the other things we started was a Karen Yagelski Math Science Technology Scholarship for girls. John Yagelski, who was the superintendent that I hired when I first got on the board, his wife passed away, and one of the things that he wanted to do, he donated several thousands of dollars to basically set up a scholarship, because one of the things that she was even with 6 kids in the house, she was an engineer, and she really felt that was an area that we need to emphasize a little bit more in our schools, was to encourage middle school young adult female girls to get into science and stay in science. I can speak from experience. There's a magical thing that happens in the middle school with girls that's very difficult to keep them focused and interested in science. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's boys or something, but it's difficult. So we set up this program, and the other thing that we said is, instead of, sometimes, get them an iPad or whatever technology, what we're really trying to do is what the adage, if you teach them to fish, they can feed themselves forever. Here we're talking about, this year we're sending 2 girls to RPI during the summer program for a week-long summer camp, technology grant. And because they're interested in technology, and this really fits nicely. So that's kind of the initiative that we're looking to engender and maintain interest in technology, math, science for young girls in the middle school. The other thing we started was basically Think Big Innovation Grant. One of the things that we thought about was we'll still be doing smaller grants and things like that for the school district, but one of the things, the other things that we wanted to support in the school district was really thinking big. Is there a major program that Oliver's thinking with the department chairs that, boy, I'd really like to fund this program, but it may take 3 years to develop in this institute. Can we get funding support? So we started that, and it's just something we're just getting off the ground with the district. But again, we're trying to have people think big and having more impact to more students and consistent with the instructional program for the district. The other thing we're getting off the ground is the alumni network. We graduate 600 to 700 students a year, and they go off. Most of them, 85% go off to colleges, 2 to 4 year colleges, and then they go off. And one of the things that we realized was we really need to create a network, alumni network, to really strengthen the ties with the district. And this not only is for financial reasons, but it's also some of these people, especially when we started the Distinguished Hall of Fame, we realized some of the special individuals that graduate from Shen that are major players in the world in various levels, at all levels. And so we viewed this as an opportunity to really create a network that can kind of feed on itself and also circle back to support the school district as people move on to their careers and lives and whatever, to really bring things back to the district on many levels. So we're getting this started and investing a considerable sum of money to really get this off the ground and work in the district hand in hand to create this network. So it's something that can support moving forward. And the thing that I wanted to mention that put things in perspective, in the last 5 years the foundation has raised over $250,000, which actually sounds like more money than $300,000. But actually, we started in 2002. I'm not sure how long I've been president, but maybe it's been 5 years, 4 or 5 years. But we really raised a lot of money, and we're getting to the point now where having a good sum that we can really make a difference with some of the larger efforts that we're talking about. So the entire board is really excited moving forward. We finally feel like we have critical mass and funding where we can really make even a bigger difference within the school district. So I think that's
Any questions for Jim? Or comments? Jim has been just a tireless organizer of this and helping us organize, because we've got people who are from many diverse areas going off. They have a lot going on, and to get people to meetings and to set up this grant process and make it known, be out there advertising it. I think a long-term goal is, one of the reasons we want to connect with these alumni, why should the colleges get all that money? We want to connect with them. The other thing is we want to, and be like the colleges, we want to build an endowment. And the purpose of the endowment would be to help fund these bigger projects, these crazy things that come along. There are some things that don't fit neatly into the box of public financing. And this provides some opportunity money where you don't have to wait. And I know that from talking to sponsors of the Green and White, asking people if they will contribute, they understand this. There are people who support education and understand that there are things that are outside the box. And just because they're outside the box doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing them. We should be thinking creatively. And Jim has been our leader on this and keeping us organized and done a wonderful job. And also with the Education Foundation being the prime sponsor for the Distinguished Alumni Award. We've done that now, Jim, 3
years.
3 years, going into a 4th year, and just seen there are some wonderful folks coming out of Shen, and part of the alumni network will help us identify those folks. And it's not just that we, in the first year recognized a graduate, I think a 1973 graduate who is now the president of GE Africa, but this year we recognized someone who graduated, he was a salutatorian in his class, went to Princeton, got a law degree, did a little bit of law work, and now is in the education business, an innovative education business. And so we're looking for people who are making a difference, right, Jim?
Yeah, and that's a good example in terms of some of the people that were recognized in the Hall of Fame, and we do have a plaque in the high school, are actually coming back on a yearly basis to talk to students about some of their experiences. I mean, one of our first award winners was the first female graduate of West Point and stuff like that. So they can really talk to their students about sharing their experiences. So I think those are the kinds of things that will feed them themselves and help integrate into the school system and really make it stronger, better, a great place to go to school. Okay.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Part of the reason Jim wanted to give that speech is he's looking for a new liaison from the board, just so you know.
Good. So, Elizabeth, and this is our annual, part of it is a required piece to do the school report card to the board and to the public. We'll have an abbreviated version of it because in many ways you have seen the data points already. It's old data. I call it postmortem. But it's something that is important for us to do, and so we'll walk through it somewhat expediently. No pressure on Mr. Me or Dr. Wood. But.
Point taken. Thank you. So this is, as Dr. Robinson indicated, 2013-14 data. We received the New York State assessment results over the summer, and we comb through them. And we really spend the summer and the fall combing through them. And then, months and months and months later, we get the state's different view of how our students performed on New York State assessments. And that is what this report indicates. And Mr. Amelia will go through how the state uses all these different formulas to basically repackage the data. And it's the same data, but they present it in a different way. And we'll talk about the value of it, and then I will come back at the end and talk about some of the things that we've already implemented. But, I've stressed the fact it's a different view. it is a valuable overview for our instructional program. You don't always like what you see, but it's another way for us to sit back and consider and reflect, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. I will note that there are sometimes subtle differences between the green check marks and red X's, and if you are really interested in what leads to the difference, certainly follow Mr. Milia's formulas, but also what I do is I actually have to roll up my sleeves and get into the data and look at, you could have a similar passing percentage of students, and yet one school would get a red X and the other may not. And it could be just the sheer number of students who are into level 1 versus a level 2, both being below proficient, but then leading to a different way that it converts through the formula, and then it presents differently. I would also note that we have a few cases, and you will see them as Mr. Milia walks through, that we have a red X for participation rate. What I don't want you to do is jump to the conclusion that it has anything to do with the opt-out movement. It does not. So any of the red X's related to participation rate as of this data do not have to do with opt-out, but have to do with some of our special needs students taking Regents exams at the high school level.
In fact, this data goes back prior to opt-out.
Yes, it has nothing to do with this April, it is the April before. So Mr. Milia will come up and provide an overview of the actual accountability report.
As we have for a while, and you've seen the report, there's a lot of slides in here that we're not going to address tonight. They're really there for the board's use as you go through the document, because there are things you don't see more than once a year in many cases, and if you've been on the board as long as Mrs. Gray has, you may not remember all of those things. A couple of keynotes in the beginning. When we talk about adequate yearly progress, it's a federal term that's assigned to school districts and to individual schools, and you have to make adequate yearly progress based on a number of things. The annual measurable objective is a performance indicator that signifies the group is making progress towards 100% of the students being proficient. That's been the goal all along. Continuously enrolled students are the students that are here on Beds Day, which is that first Tuesday in October, and they're here on that date, and then they're here when the tests are given, both at the 3 through 8 and the high school level. The effective measurable objective, or the EAMO, is the lowest performance indicator that an accountability group can achieve. And an accountability group can be based on race, ethnicity, economic disadvantage, special education. And then Safe Harbor is an alternate way for groups, schools, and districts to meet AYP if they don't meet the dot above it, which is the EAMO. So that's the stuff that's in there. So here, when you look at the accountability program for New York State, it's similar at the middle and the elementary schools in that it's the 3 through 8 testing program, it's the English language arts test, it's the mathematics test, and it's the 4th grade science test. At the high school level, it's the Regents examination in ELA and in math, but that's by cohort. So that's just one grade level at a time when they go through. The grade that they enter grade 9 is their cohort year. That's what's tracked in the high school. In the elementary and the middle schools, it's the grades tested. So in middle school, it's every grade, and in the elementary schools, it's 3, 4, and 5. The next slide is broken into two pieces. There's a participation rate and there's a performance rate. For participation, the federal government looks at 95% of eligible students participating. Science at the elementary level is at 80 because that's the standard that the state has set, and that standard hasn't moved in quite a few years. If you have a group of 40 or more students in the tested environment, that qualifies them for a participation grade. So if you have 40 economically disadvantaged students, then you will have that number and they'll have to get a participation rate of 95%. The performance rate is based on 30 in a group. So if you have 30 students who are economically disadvantaged in a particular exam, in a particular school, then they would have to be held accountable to a performance rate. And then the science ones just meet the progress target, which was 80. And when you look at that, you'll see that that's never a problem for Shenendehowa, never has been. The high school one, 95% participation rate on the English language arts Regents, 95% rate on the first math regents that students take. And in graduation, the New York State standard for all groups is now 80%. So 80% of all student groups, including the subgroups, have to graduate at least 80% in order to meet the accountability for that. Again, if the groups are 40 or more. So if there's 39 students in a group, then they don't have to meet the participation rate. Performance rate in ELA and math must exceed the AMO if the groups are 30 or more, and those are set by sizes. And then finally, the graduation rate must meet the state standard of 80 or the progress target, which is computed by subgroups. So for us, one of our subgroups, there's a progress target that's there. Actually, there's two of our subgroups have that. This is very complicated, actually. It's complicated, it's not, but it's a lot to explain. The bottom line is, when the state tests students in 3 through 8, they assign 4 levels, 1, 2, 3, and 4. They went further 2 years ago and said that we're going to look at students who get a grade that's not considered meeting the standard, which is a 1 or a 2. And they said, we're going to see if they have a high enough 1 and a high enough 2, we'll consider them to be on track to being proficient. And so what you now have is level 1 on track, level 1 not on track, level 2 on track, and then level 2 not on track. The subtle differences in there is that the level 2 not on track actually helps school districts make AYP by including them in that. They get a rating for it.
So is it better to be level 1 on track or level 2 not on track?
It depends on who
You always want to be a 2 versus a 1. You always want to be a 2 versus a 1. Student performance levels at the elementary and middle school, again, are using a performance index. There are 4. They change the verbiage every now and then. This is a soft change from a prior year. Level 1 is now basic, level 2 is basic proficient, level 3 is proficient, level 4 is advanced. That's a little different than it was a year or 2 ago. The performance index is a range of 0 to 200 at the elementary and middle school level, and again, without going through the whole thing, it's a combination of the levels that we have on and off track divided by the number of students who are here on Beds Day and take the test times 100. And then the same thing for the science piece. And at the high school level, it's the numbers of 2, 3s, and 4s and the number scoring at levels 3 and 4 divided by the cohort members. And they're actually going to they'll probably change this next year to levels 2, 3, 4, and 5 because the Common Core Regents exams have a 5 on them now for 85 and up. So they've added a level. This is actually a spreadsheet that the district gets. Last year we received it sometime in the middle to the 3rd week of July, and it indicated our standing for this year. So that's our status for the 14-15 year based on the 13-14 scores. Okay, so we'll get another one of those sometime mid-late July. These again are here for your review. They are what they are. This is part of the school district's report card. All of this is the New York State Education Department.gov, and look for school report card data. So I include all this because we've included these kinds of categories before, so the board gets a feel for the number of students, free and reduced lunch, so on and so forth. Numbers of teachers, years of experiences, so on and so forth. Now the AYP piece. This is broken down into the 2 levels. There's an elementary middle school AYP, and there's a secondary level or a high school AYP. This one is elementary and middle ELA, so these are the students in grades 3 through 8 that took the ELA test. And you can see last year we had 4,828 students enrolled during that period, of which 99% were tested. So if you look to the far left, we have made AYPs. The first thing that's nice to see, percent tested is at least 95%. Well, yeah, it's 99. The performance indicator, our students scored a 138. The lowest they could get for an effective annual measurable objective was an 87. They're well past that, and then the safe harbor target was also an 87. So that's for all students. You'll note here that under American Indian or Alaska Native, there's white dashes. That's because the number that's reported there is actually 4 students. When there's less than 5, they report nothing. So there's just a dash. But then you can see all the other groups that are in here, and you can see the sizes of those groups, the numbers and the percents. Next one should be math, and for this one, same concept, same number of students. This is 98% tested. You'll see the performance indicators 144. We had to get at least an 84, well past that figure as well. By the way, that EAMO and the safe harbor target, that's adjusted each year, and it's based on school district size as well as school district performance, because it keeps increasing, going for the target of 200. Elementary and middle science, this is, we're just showing it to you, really to show it to you. This has never been anything that's been very difficult for our students. The performance indicator is a 192. We had to get a 180. It's 192 of 200. And when you look at some of the individual school report cards, you'll see some of them actually have 200. It's a test that while it's a good measure to have, it's not as challenging for some of our students. Now at the secondary level, again, this is the different one now because this just looks at one grade level. So the cohort group is the group that's passed through and has taken that third year of Regents exams, the English, Regents, ELA, and so on and so forth. So for here, there were 716 students, 99% tested overall. Performance indicator was a 182, you needed a 162. So for that group, you've got the green check marks. For here, we have students that are under the numbers, so there's no data. Well, there's no students there, so there's no data here. Here we have groups that are under the 30, so they list them, and they list the accountability members in that cohort, but they list no other data. The reason is because the state doesn't want anyone to figure out who the students are in the group.
Does that score out of 200 again?
Yes. The performance indicator is at a 200, yes. You get down here, this is where you see the first red X's. Made AYP, we did not, and percent tested 95%, we did not. If you scroll across, you'll see we actually, for the students that we did test, we got a 131 and we only needed a 105. But we fell below the percent tested, we were at 90 instead of the 95%, so that's why there's a red X there. Secondary level math, same thing. You've got 93% tested there. You have a performance indicator of 99. You only needed a 93. And when you're talking about 75 students and 93%, you're talking about one or two children difference in that. Graduation data, this one's a little different because the graduation data here, remember the state target is 80%, and our cohort was 81%. Our graduation rate, however, was 64%.
This is for student with disabilities.
Students with disabilities, yes, because there's all students up here. All students up here, not an issue. 91% graduation rate. Again, that's the 4-year rate. I want to remind people of that. The 4-year rate is the cohort rate. That's the kids that started in grade 9 made it to the end. Because some people talk about an annual graduation rate. That's just the kids that started in grade 12 in September and graduate this June. That's not the same thing. And down here, we needed to get either the state 80%, or in this case, they give us a progress target. Our progress target was 66%. We had 64. Now, I lift well, these are spreadsheets that I make, but I lift these off of each of our individual school report cards. There are a total of 72 boxes in here that we had a population large enough to receive some kind of a mark, either a check mark or an X. And of the 72, 16 were X's, so it's like 12 were X's, it's like 16%. And so you'll see that in each of the schools. There was one on one of the schools, for example, you would see, like AYP status is one thing, but you'll see participation. You might not see a check mark under the 40, but you'll see a check mark under the performance. The reason for that being is there's at least 30 kids that are in the performance group, but there isn't 40 for the participation piece. And I saw that in one of the elementary schools when it stands out there. So that's why you have those pieces there. And again, these are pretty much students with disabilities, and then there's one group, one set of slides in there that had to do with economically disadvantaged. And those are the pieces. Those are the score pieces that we use.
Thank you, Bob.
What's going to happen when the opt-out?
And so we do review this data with a fine-tooth comb, but really our district goals continue to guide us. And we set that at the beginning of the year, after we see student performance results, and where we know we want to be taking our academic program. We are very committed to ensuring that our academic program responds to the needs of a wide range of learners. And just even the development of, say, our progressions document really highlighted for us where we had some spots in our academic program that we should be shoring up. Be it our RTI AIS plan or the special education continuum. These are all kind of healthy things that we do in the system to make sure that we are really committed to meeting the needs of all of our students. We need to put this data in context. And it is the context that it is all based on a single measure of the New York State assessments, either the Regents exams or the 3-8 ELA and math assessments. And in order to really understand the progress of students, it requires us to take a more comprehensive look on their progress. And that includes that we're looking at common assessments on how students are doing throughout the year. And then we are collecting timely feedback related to those students, and we've invested in software programs to help us really analyze that data so that teachers and administrators have their hands on more current data to make decisions about students. And it is very important that we put all of this in context. And I can say with confidence that we have students who earn 3s on New York State assessments or pass Regents exams who we still have some questions about their overall performance and their skills as they've developed, because that might be how they perform there, but there are other measures that maybe aren't always in alignment. Conversely, we have students who don't necessarily do as well on that one measure who also show us in their daily performance that they're really doing very well. So while it is important, and I don't take anything away from it, I also want to paint the fact that it's very important that we look at each student and we look at multiple points of data for each student. I would say that we are also making program enhancements, and the board is very well aware of many of the enhancements that we've made, and I certainly won't take time to review all of them, but one thing I will note, we have taken a closer look at some of our special education students where you saw that we were missing at the performance indicator, the participation rate at the high school. A few students who have been in programs that will lead to a CDOS credential, which is they have been identified after years of being in our system as students who will exit with a commencement credential, where the determination has been made that it is really time to start preparing them for career and gainful employment. And not every one of those students previously had been sitting for Regents exams. And that is the profile of the student that really led to, and honestly, we have to take a look at each of those students to see which ones should be sitting for the Regents and where it may not make sense for those students to be sitting for Regents exams. So it's really putting the larger perspective as we review the data. The other thing I would point out in terms of the list of program enhancements is the fact that we have added to IPAC in the spring a program review. And while it may seem like, another formulaic, I assure you it is not. We can add and we can take away programs, but really one of the healthy habits is reviewing what exists. And we are in the process of building that culture of having departments take a look at courses that are on the books, doing a self-review, and presenting that to IPAC. And I believe that that can only help us as we move forward as well. And so while we do take this data very seriously and we do examine every green check mark and every red X, the true accountability within Shenendehowa manifests itself as we implement our district goals and we evaluate how that plays out in terms of individual student performance and overall program data. And we believe when we make those adjustments, the data really will follow suit.
Questions, comments, criticisms, concerns?
I'm just curious with the opt-out movement, what kind of a mess is that going to create for us for next year?
This is where it's going to show up, Gary, if they keep true to the same formula. It will show up here. Oops, one more. It'll show up in
All the participation rates.
in the participation rate, in this line, in the participation percentage, which is going to be interesting because I'm not sure what the state is actually going to do with that. You have to remember a couple of things happening. A lot of this is driven by No Child Left Behind. It goes back to Bush 2, I guess, however you want to call him, Bush 1, Bush 2, president. And so NCLB put all this in place and imposed on states. And ironically, this was also imposed upon states when there were funding, and most recently, it was the race to the top funding under President Obama, actually followed Bush into Obama, to those kind of things. And the interesting part of it is that the federal funds have dried up. And something we spoke about here at this table that, unfortunately, I just read something this week that we thought they were moving on the reauthorization of the Education Secondary Act, which would have, in fact, eliminated all this AYP, EMO, and all those other alphabet soups from the equation. The question is, if they don't act on it and there's no federal funds coming to states to support it, what measure of accountability do they have, or coercion or persuasion or otherwise, to have states do this? And that's a struggle that New York is dealing with right now in terms of what's it going to look like next year. And if they keep the formulas, quite frankly with you, every school district across New York State is going to have red X's because of participation. So not to belittle the red X, because part of the accountability piece is not necessarily celebrating successes. It's identifying, probably one of the better things that they did, if there's any good thing in NCLB, I give it credit for this one thing, is that it forced us to look at subgroups of kids. Because in many systems, certain categories of certain kids, be it from either racial background or socioeconomic background, were getting slaughtered, and no one recognized them as such. So this has done that. For us here at Shen, and Dr. Wood alluded to it, has really forced us to really start thinking differently. We've been doing this now for a number of years, how we look at special education students. And not just simply having the kid being tortured by taking a test over and over and over again because we have to do it for accountability purposes, versus really looking at, from a program perspective, how do we build and try to provide kids options that maximize their respective talent level for where they are, and not just simply going through the accountability mandated game. And that's where, to some degree, we'll probably still see some of those X's in the participation piece, because I think it's grossly unfair to have a child sit and take the same exam 5 times. It's so we're trying to figure out. That's why the state came up with the CDOS option a couple years ago, to try to say, okay, you have the kids who have the individual, what's called IEP diploma. There's a what's that, Michelle? Not the IEP diploma. They call it a stack now, but I call it referred to as ignorantly as that. And then you had regions. And so, but there are a lot of kids in between the two of those. And so now it's trying to find some other options for kids moving forward. So we're going to see how that's going to translate moving forward for us. And we have some pretty extensive programs there. But on the same note, our quest is always to try to push kids as much as we can and maximize their abilities without having that process become, quite frankly, a dehumanizing process when kids are sitting and taking stuff that they know they simply don't have the capacity to do it. And we don't want to torture any kids with that situation. So that's the kind of fine line between the data points.
So really, we need to really think about how to educate families of students who could and would potentially be successful taking these exams, and getting them to kind of buy into participating, as opposed to making another statement unrelated or only tangentially related to the student's performance in school and their school experience.
And that's why it goes back to the point Dr. Wood made, that we look at multiple data points to really try to figure out a student's aptitude, if I'm going to use that word. I say capacity, but sometimes it's not the probably most PC term. Aptitude to be academically successful. So we try to look at different things and see how kids are progressing. Because what we don't want to do is the other thing of, okay, well, there's another option, so we lump in any kid who we are, quote unquote, might be doubtful into this other option, when they could actually have been successful in a much more rigorous option. So we really want to have enough data to exercise due diligence and the type of fidelity that we need to ensure that, okay, yeah, this is the option that maximizes this child's potential more so than not. So we certainly want to have that kind of due diligence, and we're doing that. And that's why the data points here, why some years seem kind of routine that we go through this process, but it just gives us that true indicator of, okay, because we're not only talking about what happened to Shen, we're talking about what's happening across the state, because at the end of the day, all these kids are competing against not only kids here in New York, but otherwise. So we want to make sure that we're putting our kids in a situation where, again, life after Shen is something that they can find success.
Additional question? Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Commissioner. And Elizabeth is still on stage.
You're staying here for
Summer program.
But more efficient if I just stayed. So I know many people think, oh, the school year is winding down, which it is, no doubt, but we also at the same time gear up for a number of summer programs. The summer programs that we run historically here in Shenendehowa and have for many years, we have the Summer Literacy Support Program, which focuses on providing additional supports for elementary students. We have the Summer Special Education Program, which is for students who qualify for an extended year, 12-month program for special education. We have middle school, high school, summer school, and we also have summer camps through continuing education. And at just a rough total today, I'm figuring between 1,500 to 1,800 students will be coming back this summer to participate in one of those, and then hundreds of teachers. And when I say hundreds of teachers, it leads us into not only are they our best source of support for either teaching summer school or teaching summer literacy support for our students, but they're also participating in professional development through Summer Academy for Educators and working on curriculum projects. Our summer literacy support is moving this summer to Tasago Elementary. Right now, I think it's actually even higher than 233 students that have registered, including a number of students who receive English as a new language. We embed those services in that summer literacy support program as well. Scott D'Ambro continues to coordinate that program. The Summer Special Education Program is run out of two sites, Shattuckon Elementary and also High School East, with Renee Young continuing to coordinate that program for a second year. Summer School, Mr. Frank Roselli serves as the summer school principal and Catherine McTiernan is the assistant principal. We do not know yet quite how many students will be enrolled in summer school, as registration is June 30th. However, I factored in an estimate a reasonable estimate based on other years for what we can anticipate. And again, we will be having summer school in the West Building. Summer camps through continuing ed. John Conover continues to coordinate this with significant support from Rebecca Carmen's office. As of a few weeks ago, they had close to 900 campers registered for this program. It just continues to grow. And then in terms of offerings for teachers, literally, I just went in and chose a sampling. We have a very extensive list of offerings for teachers and really try to design them so that we feel like there would be something of interest for every teacher who is willing to come in over the summer and participate in professional development. And it could be on culturally responsive teaching or save time by using eDoctrina, which is one of the software packages I mentioned before, where teachers could scan in student results and then more quickly analyze student data more immediately. Google Apps. It could be, we've rolled out IWBs, which are interactive whiteboards and Chromebooks and iPads based on people who have applied for grants. Many of those teachers come in over the summer to receive their training, and those who do are the first ones that get the rollout in the fall. The ones who prefer to have the training in the fall, wait, and we distribute those devices after they have gone through their training.
Do you have any idea of what percentage of our teachers participate in that?
Participate in
In the summer academy?
I don't, and I would say this because we get repeats. So in terms of percent of teachers, I could tell you it was
Same
maybe
with multiple sessions.
maybe 150, 200 people filled seats last year, but some of those people would be coming to multiples. And then summer curriculum work. While teachers are busy participating in professional development, many of them are also coming in and working on summer curriculum through, yeah, it is, through working on curriculum maps or designing new assessments. And so really to sum it up, while we are wrapping up the year, we're also gearing up for a very busy summer.
Good, thank you.
Great, thank you. So we'll actually move into action items. We have staffing recommendations. Bush?
Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to do staffing recommendations on this meeting. We have 13 new teachers as part of this recommendation, and one of our new recommendations, our new teacher for business, Amanda Fong, is here tonight, this evening with her husband, who's an art teacher in another district. We might try to steal him as well. Amanda, would you just stand up? She's going to be in place of Laura Tarlow, who is now our class assistant principal. So, welcome, Amanda. And the only other of note is Gina Downey is resigning from her position, but she's moving to Scano. She will be, Gina Downey right now is a typist at Transportation, and she will be moving to the principal secretary at Scano. Okay.
Good. Do we have a motion to accept the staffing recommendations? Janet, second? Bob, any questions, comments?
Could I just say how pleased I am that we have the superintendent's contract on this as well, and I'm very happy to see it there.
Thank you. I think we all agree with that. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Which gets us ready for adjournment. We did leave off one day. We have graduation on Thursday at 1:30 at SPAC, right? Yep. And our organizational meeting for next year and a regular business meeting for July will be July 7th at 6. We will start at 6 p.m. Right here in the Guana Library. Without other announcements, do I have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Gray, second. Jim, all those in favor? Meeting's adjourned. Thank you, Janet.